Hi everyone, welcome to Good Day Chula Vista. One more time, thank you for joining us. And today we're going to talk about real estate, so stay with us. So thank you for joining us again. Good Day Chula Vista. We're on our episode 37. Can you believe that?
Already?
37.
Seems like it was just one.
Right? We're going to have our first year anniversary in June, actually. We should have like a big party.
Congratulations.
Thank you everyone for always joining us, for sharing this video. So if you can help us by sharing this video to your Facebook right now so your friends can see it. Everybody wants to know what's happening with real estate. Either because they're buying or they're selling or they just want to know how much their house is worth. So please share this video to your page right now. Make a comment. We're going to have a drawing at the end of the show. So we have good information for you here today. And we have with us our guru here, Cory Shepard. He's our general manager here at Coldwell Banker West, the #1 company, not just in South Bay, but hey, we're escalating.
Absolutely.
Right?
Because we have great agents like you,
Oh,
FABY.
thank you. I think we all work really hard here at Coldwell Banker West, and we get encouraged every day to do something better. This studio is proof of it. They're always trying to give us what's the newest thing so we can use it and be ahead of the game. But today, Cory, I'm so happy that you're here because you're going to tell us about, you were with us 8 months ago, and we asked you some questions since you've been in real estate all your life.
Just about.
Yeah, and everything you told us was right. Everything happened the way you said it was going to happen. So
I have a lot to live up to then.
right, yes. So now I want to hear what you have to say, just because it was very confusing at the beginning. We didn't know if the market's going up, it's going down. Even us as realtors, we didn't really know what to tell our clients, so we were just relying on people that have more experience than us. So, but before we get started, Cory, for our viewers, can you please tell us a little bit about you?
Sure, absolutely. So as far as my real estate career, I started in real estate when I was 19 years old. I started in 1975. So as we know, FABY, real estate goes through cycles. It always has. It always will. And we're in, part of a cycle right now.
Right.
So I started selling real estate then. And since then, I've owned and managed real estate companies, had the pleasure of working with hundreds and hundreds, maybe thousands of great real estate agents like you over my career, FABY.
Thank you.
I started in the San Gabriel Valley of the Los Angeles County and then moved to San Diego County, probably one of the best things that ever happened, in 1984.
Oh.
So I almost feel like a native San Diego
Right.
now.
Yeah.
I am married to also a realtor, and I have 2 children. And 3 grandkids.
Yes, they're beautiful.
Thank you. I think so.
Yes, and you don't have to educate them. You can just spoil those, right?
That's fun to do. Absolutely.
So tell us a little bit about Coldwell Banker West, because I think we always talk about the real estate market, what's going on, but I not just because I'm at Coldwell Banker West, but when I drive around this area, because I live here in the area, all I see are I want to say 95% of the signs out there for open houses are from Coldwell Banker West. So tell us, what's going on with Coldwell Banker West?
Sure. So Coldwell Banker West, when I came and joined the company 5 years ago with you, FABY,
yes.
which was a great day. And at that time, we had the offices in Chula Vista and the one here in Eastlake and the one in Bonita.
Right.
And since that time, we've really doubled our locations. We have 6 locations now, so we're in South County as well as East County, and have an office opening hopefully in the next few months downtown San Diego in Petco Park.
Wow, that one's going to be fun. I'm sure there's a waiting list for that office.
It's going to be a fun place, that's for sure.
So how many agents do we have now?
So right now we're approaching 700 agents with the company, and most importantly with the great things that you're doing here as well as our other agents in South County. We control about 20% of the real estate in the market in Chula Vista and South County. And what's really impressive with our global luxury division, which is international division for Coldwell Banker, in South County we control about 28% of all the homes at 750,000 and above that are sold. So that's, congratulations, quite an accomplishment.
Wow, yes, thank you to all of us that are working hard to make that happen. Well, yeah, I definitely think I'm in the #1 company, and I'm happy to be here. So tell us.
It's our pleasure.
Tell us about the real estate market. What's going on?
Sure. So, a little bit at a high level of what's happening in the real estate market right now is you have properties still appreciating, and that trend will continue, I believe, this year and next year, certainly. Interest rates are moving up, which I remember we talked about on the last show. Yes. And for a long time, we kept talking about now's the time to buy while interest rates are towards the bottom of the cycle. And that's happened. Interest rates have moved up to what, the 4.25%, 4.5% range, depending on what type of loan.
5% too, yeah.
Yeah, and of course it all depends on credit as well. And I would assume that we're probably going to see another 2 interest rate increases this year. Could be maybe 3, but I think 2 for sure.
At least 2. Wow.
Yeah.
So if you're right at the edge of buying or not buying, you might as well just buy and not wait for the perfect house, because it makes a big difference on your payment. And then in the 30 years of your payments, even just 1/4 of a point makes a big difference.
It makes a big difference on what you pay over the life of a loan. And it also makes a big difference in the amount of a house that you can buy, right? Because when rates go up, you buy a little bit less in price because the payments moved up, and so typically you're buying a little bit less house.
Right.
So, we should, FABY, probably, since we're talking about cycles, talk about interest rates in a historical perspective.
I would love that.
Okay, great. So, if you look at interest rates for the last 46 years that they've been tracked across the United States, and typically we look at the Fannie Mae rates, which are published every single month. If you averaged over the last 46 years the interest rates, they would average to be about just over 8.1%. Now that sounds like, how can that be? Because we've been in such a low interest rate market for, the last probably 9 years, that we got used to that, and we've been very spoiled by that. But we can certainly remember when interest rates were 18%, and we never thought we'd ever see 10% rates again, let alone ever get into the 7.65 interest rate level.
Exactly.
So I know, based on human emotion and the psychology of it, we're going to think when interest rates hit 5%, which they will by the end of this year, that, wow, rates are really high. But they're really not. Historically, that's still really low. Right. And so we have to keep that long-term perspective on rates.
5% is still low. Yeah, I agree. I mean, we used to think, I remember thinking it was a good rate, and it was 8%.
Yes.
And that was a good rate.
Yes.
Back in the, not that I'm that old, but it used to be.
I gave my age away with the 18% rates.
18%, yes. But that's true. That's when a lot of people lost their homes, because they were not even fixed rates, right?
Some were fixed, but there was a lot of creative financing and a lot of adjustable rates that came into the market at that time.
I was not a realtor then, but I remember reading about it. So then, and now tell us about, I know that the prices are still increasing, and even though they're increasing less here in Chula Vista, right? We're like at what you said, 5.5%?
Yeah, about 5.5% is what they've appreciated so far year to date versus where we were a year ago. Okay. And that's a little bit less than the rest of the county. So San Diego County overall is appreciating thus far this year at about a 10% rate. I don't expect that we're going to finish the year that high, but I think we'll be in that 6 to 8% range, and I think Chula Vista and East Lake will be close to that as well. And what we have to remember is that South County's always been one of the most affordable areas of San Diego County. So we had a lot higher appreciation coming out of the recession over the last number of years. And so now the county's a little bit higher and we're a little bit lower, but still.
We're catching up to them.
Right, and if you look at the average price of a home or the median price of a home in Chula Vista, even at 5.5%, it's like saving $35,000 a year if you own a $600,000 home.
Yes. Yeah, it's still always better to own a home.
Yes.
Yes. So, okay, so what about, there's not a lot of inventory. So tell us about, I know you always know like how many weeks we have of inventory here in Chula Vista. So what do you see right now?
So what we see right now is a continued shortage of inventory, so there's more demand for real estate than there is at least new product coming on the market.
Right.
So right now, detached homes are a little bit higher than attached homes as far as months worth of inventory, but if you blend those together, there's about 1.5 months worth of inventory on the market, which means that, Fabi, if no sellers put their home on the market today forward, there would be no homes for sale 45 days from now. So that's very low inventory because in a normal market, we should have like 4 to 6 months worth of inventory.
Right. I think last year it was almost the same when we spoke. I think it was like 1.5 to 2 months.
Yes.
That hasn't, it's not any better. Do you think it's because there's not a lot of people selling, or do you think it's because there's way more buyers?
So I think it's a challenge of two things, or maybe even a few things. One is that there still hasn't been enough new building to keep up with the growth of California population. The other part is that the millennials were holding off buying for a number of years. They were buying later than you or I or our parents might have in life, but now they're reaching the age where they're starting to buy, and that population is bigger than the baby boomer population, which would have been my age group, and so there's a lot that fuels the real estate market with just not a lot of inventory. I also think that some people have been waiting to decide when's the right time to move up. I'd like to move up, but I'm not sure if I should. And now with a shortage of inventory, it's even a little bit harder because they need to make sure that they can find their next home in a short inventory market.
Right.
Which is where experts like you come into play that know how to not only find the inventory on the market, but know about inventory that's not on the market yet that will be coming on the market.
Right. You know, being in touch with all the investors, the new developments, with the agents here at the office. They have their listings before they go in the MLS.
Right.
Going to our strategy meetings and finding out what's coming on the market. I was going to ask you, so for the new construction, because we were talking about that before, I was reaching out to some of our investors and some of the developers that we know in the area, and they were telling us that it's 15 months to get the permits to start construction. So that means there's not going to be, if there's no construction right now, there's not going to be any for at least another year, right?
Yes, so obviously it's a long cycle to get permits, probably anywhere in California and most parts of the country. However, cities are looking at ways to improve that process, make it faster, make it easier for developers, because they know that the cities need housing. People need places to live.
Right. One of the things that I had mentioned to one of the agents before, they were asking me about, they had some unpermitted things in their property, and it was considered like a granny flat. And so the city here in Chula Vista and here in San Diego, they're being very flexible with that, with allowing you to get permits for that and make it a granny flat. Not 2 units, just a granny flat, because of that house being so low in housing. So if you're out there and you're thinking of selling, and that's your, that's the issue you have, you think, well, this is unpermitted. Maybe we can bring someone and help you, just talk to someone and make it a granny flat, and you would get more money for your house and be able to sell it and upgrade to a bigger house or a smaller house if that's the case.
That's a great point. And the other thing with that, I think, FABY, is that good for all of your viewers to know, is that's really a zoning decision at the state level. It's state law. Any residential property, as long as you have the proper setbacks and enough room, you can add a second living quarter on the property. So I know for a lot of buyers today, they may be thinking ahead about when my parents reach the age where they're going to need help and assistance with living, I'd like the house to be big enough for them to move in. Well, they don't have to buy that house today, as long as they have room to be able to add a granny flat or a second residence on the property. All zoning law in the state of California permits that, as long as you have proper setbacks.
Right. So that's a good point. So if you're thinking of selling right now because there's no inventory, this would be the perfect time to sell, because interest rates are still low. 4.5 is still low, and there's no inventory, so you're gonna get multiple offers if you price it right.
That's right.
So let's talk about what other things can we let them know. So this is the forecast, and we talked about what's going on right here in Chula Vista. What about up north? What about people that are thinking more to relocating in Temecula and Riverside? What do you think of that area? What's your opinion on that area?
So there's a lot of people who live in San Diego County that commute to Riverside, and they do that for affordability, because homes are typically less expensive there. And it's really a personal choice, right? Is how far you want to commute, what kind of traffic you want to deal with. Obviously, if you can afford to buy in San Diego County, I would buy in San Diego County. Right, we're a little biased because we live here. We love this area. Certainly in downturn cycles, and there'll be one sometime here in the future, Riverside County gets hit a little bit harder, both in the Temecula, Murrieta, as well as the desert areas, than San Diego does. But for a lot of people who they have to go there because that's the place they can afford to buy versus San Diego, at least they can get into home ownership.
Right. I used to see that a lot in 2005, and I'm seeing that again. Like a lot of my clients are moving up there because they can get a bigger house.
Yes.
So, okay, so now let's talk about the affordability index, because last time we talked about this, I honestly wasn't sure, like, oh my God, is the market going to crash this year? And you, at one of our co banker meetings, you went over the affordability index, and after I heard all that, I'm like, oh no, we still have, definitely one more year. And so where are we right now with that?
So it's hard to forecast too far into the future.
Right. Let's go this year only.
And there's a lot of things that can happen in the world that sometimes affect the cycles. But right now, affordability has been amazingly steady. So I probably would have thought that affordability would have come down more than it has since we got together last 8 or 9 months ago.
Right.
It's only moved a couple points. It's still in the high 20s, which is still says that a downturn is a ways off in the future. When we see that affordability index fall into the low 20s or even more so into the teens, then you're headed usually into a recession cycle. Okay. Now, the good part is, again, we're going to get there at some point in time.
Right.
So when we do, the fundamentals of the mortgage market, the fundamentals of lending, and of the entire real estate and economy are much better than they were when we entered the Great Recession, right? And we fortunately haven't gone back to those bad fundamentals. So with that, when the recession comes, hopefully it'll be like the typical California recessions we saw in the 70s, 80s, 90s, where it might be an 18-month to 2-year cycle, and we're back out again. And those were cycles in those decades that we didn't feel the recessions a lot in California.
Right. It was not like 2008 or 2007. That one, I think, was the biggest one ever, right?
Probably since the Depression in the 30s, for sure.
We survived, so we can survive anything.
Yes, and maybe that's a good segue that we could talk about this chart, which your viewers probably can't see, but if they email you, we'll get you all this material.
Okay.
So what I have here, Fabi, is a chart of real estate values from the year 1940, or the decade 1940, right through the end of last year.
Oh, wow.
And what's so interesting about this is if you look at home appreciation, regardless of the cycle in each decade, on average over the last, 78 years, 77 years, the appreciation has averaged 10.74% per year on average since 1940 through 2017.
In appreciation.
In appreciation.
10%.
Right,
So-
10% per year.
So if you buy a house and you're thinking, well, maybe you're not going to be able to flip it in 2 years, but it's a long-term investment. I think it's the safest investment. But if you keep it for 10 years, for sure, you will make some money.
Yeah, so typically prices in California tend to double every 10 years.
We get used to that.
Yeah, it's the way it's been.
Right.
And what's interesting, Fabi, is if you go back to the years of that 2008 period, and you look at what happened between the year 2000 and 2010, properties still appreciated positively at 2.5–3% per year. And they said we'll never see the kind of appreciation on the average of 10% again. But what's funny is if you look at 2010, just through the end of last year, we're already at 85% appreciation. So if you take that out through 18, 19, and the year 2020, we'll be at 10% average
10%
per year again.
again.
So we've kind of returned to the basics of California real estate.
So I think this is a really good chart. Definitely. I would like a copy of that so I can share it with everyone. And because some people are scared to invest in real estate, but this is a proof that no matter what's going on in the world, if you stick with your property, you will make money. It will appreciate.
I think that's a great message, not because we're saying it, because it's the facts. There's
Correct.
never been a decade since they've tracked housing prices in California where you could own real estate for 10 years and lose.
Right. You would know that because your parents were also in real estate, right?
Yes, my parents were in real estate, but think about it this way. If any of your viewers on the show, go back and ask their parents, what did you pay for your home? And then if your grandparents are still alive, ask your grandparents what they paid for their home, if they were homeowners, and that'll be all the proof that you need.
Exactly. For people that think, oh, no, the prices are not going to go any higher. Yes, they will. Okay, so I think this is a pretty safe forecast from what I've seen. So I think it's still safe to buy. Interest rates are still low.
Yes.
It's a good time to sell and upgrade.
Right. And so, as we've talked about before, Fabi, what's more important is to buy with a good interest rate than worrying about what's going to happen with the real estate cycle. And what we just talked about is proof of that, right? It doesn't matter. When you're buying your own home to live in, look, there's lots of great benefits of being a homeowner. You get to choose the neighborhood you're going to live in. You get to improve the property in ways that you can't if you're a tenant.
Right.
It is your home. It is your family. It is where you go to rest and play every day. And so it isn't about timing the market perfectly when you're buying to live in a home. It's about time in the market.
Right.
And again, most Californians are going to live in their home today for 6 to 10 years. And if you're out to that 10-year period, there's just no way historically that you can lose.
Right.
You're going to win, and you're going to win in a big way in having an asset at the end of the time you want to work and go into retirement that you would never be able to save for by putting part of your paycheck away every week.
Right. And you know what? Also, right now, what I've seen is there's so much money from the county and from the city on all these city programs. I know Point Mortgage has many lenders that are doing those programs, and I was impressed to see. I mean, some of these clients are buying $500,000 homes. I used to think those programs were for low-income people, but they are able to afford $500,000. Their payment is only like $2,100 because of those programs. And I remember before it was hard to find a program that had funds. But right now it seems there's funds in Chula Vista, there's funds in San Diego. So I think that's also why there's so many buyers out there.
Yeah, and there's so many different types of financing programs, Fabi. It's really important for clients who are interested in buying to sit down with a loan professional, sit down with one of our point loan officers, and talk about what's the best tailored fit of a loan for their circumstances.
Right.
Because everybody's circumstances are a little bit different. And I'm just thinking right now of a transaction that just closed, and the client still had some credit issues at the time that they decided to buy. And our loan officer at Point looked at it and said, you know, we have 10 more days to close escrow. If we can get your credit score up 2 points, we can get you a better interest rate and a lower payment. And so they rescored them. They paid off a couple of credit cards.
And did a rapid rescore?
Yeah, that had minor balances in it, did a rapid rescore, and they got a lower rate. And that's the kind of service you want from a loan officer. Is you really want somebody who's looking out for your personal best interests.
Right. And you usually can feel that when you sit with them and start asking questions. Sometimes when they offer you things that you wouldn't even think about.
Yes.
Oh, that's an option.
Yeah.
Yes, we're lucky to have them here. I work with Stephanie Puentes, so I think that a lot of the buyers that have been there. But, you know, there's so many lenders at Point Mortgage. You can talk to any of them. And I think they're all approved for those programs, right? Most of them?
Yes, they do most of the city assistant or county assistant programs.
Right. So there's no excuse. If you want to buy, there's so many. If you don't have money for your down payment, there's even programs out there to help you get it. But, you know, even though there's low inventory, I can tell you, you know, from my experience in the last few months that I've been able to get multiple offers for my sellers and get the price up there. But I've been able to get for my buyers under listed price.
Yes.
45 days for those programs, which I was impressed. I'm like, nobody's going to take my 45-day offer. Nobody's going to take my offer because it's below listed price. Amazingly, it's working that way. So don't get discouraged if you're a buyer. It's just a negotiation. So make sure you get an experienced realtor that's really going to negotiate that price for you.
Hey, and what's great about that point, Fabi, is for your viewers, you can share the data with them of the market. So make sure and talk to Fabi about looking at the area you're going to buy in and what's the average percentage that homes are being negotiated, right? Because they're not all selling over full price. In fact, on average, they're not. A lot of areas are selling very close, but there's still a couple percent to 3, 4, 5%, depending on price range.
Right.
That's negotiable in the market today.
Right. You'll be impressed. So yeah, make sure you don't get discouraged because you see the prices going up and say, oh my God, they're never going to take my offer. What else? Is there anything else we had? I think we covered mostly everything.
We probably covered a lot. I think maybe the only other thing we could talk about, if I can find my paperwork here, is maybe talking a little bit about, you know, what if you're renting right now and you want to buy, but you're not sure, you're nervous about becoming a homeowner. And I just brought one quick example
that would be
for you,
great.
Fabi. So what this shows, and again, contact Fabi. She can tailor this for your personal needs, exactly what you're paying in rent, what price home you can afford to buy, and this will predict the future, right? So if you looked at, if somebody's renting a home here in Chula Vista and they're paying $2,300 a month, which many renters are.
Even more.
Right, and even more. Rents are going to increase on an average of about 3% per year over the long term. So if you look at over the next 30 years, somebody who's paying $2,300 a month for rent today is going to pay $1,313,000 for rent. Now, if you're renting today, that's a scary number that you never even think about, right? And what are you going to have at the end of 30 years? Absolutely
Your
nothing.
deposit, if the house looks good when you return the house to the landlord.
And a stack of checks, right? But if you bought a home for $525,000, which there are a number of those on the market today, and it appreciated just at half the rate, only 5% a year, that home 30 years from now, if you don't refinance it, will be free and clear, and you'll have a $2,269,000 nest egg for your retirement. So
Yeah,
it's
so
a big difference.
It is a big difference. It's always better to buy than to rent. I mean, sometimes we have to give the notice to tenants because the seller is selling right now because of the prices, and they're investors, and they've been there like 10 years. So they're not getting anything. They're leaving. They paid this house for 10 years. The landlord is keeping all the profit.
Yep.
And they're leaving with the deposit.
So speaking of that, and to that point, Fabi, maybe I'll close on this for your customers. So if you're renting at $2,300 a month now, and you buy a $525,000 home, and let's say you get an FHA loan at 4.25%, by the time you get your tax benefits for owning a home that they're not getting renting,
Right.
their actual net payment is $2,268 a month. So almost the same as renting. But the big difference is that their average rent over that 30-year period, because of the 3% increase, is going to be over $3,100 a month, where they're a fixed interest rate at 4.25%. They're going to have for 30 years a fixed payment, right, after taxes of $2,268 a month.
Right. Fix and then
Way better to own. Plus, you get that $2.2 million equity that you don't get renting.
Yeah, that's if you buy instead of rent. Definitely. If you're scared, just make that call. Try to get pre-qualified. Just know where you stand. Sometimes you're better off than you think you are. So I don't see any benefit in renting unless you are moving and you're only here temporary. But I honestly don't see any benefit in renting for more than a couple of years if you have a job and you can buy.
Yeah, so once you've bought, you can always think back to, it's always a little bit of a scary process till you make your first 3 payments, right? After you make your first 3 payments, the fear goes away.
Like, I made it.
But yes, but really fear in life with anything
Right.
is just not having enough knowledge.
Right.
So come talk to Fabi and get the knowledge you need so the fear will go away. And trust me, over the next 5, 10, 30 years, you'll be very happy you did.
Yes, you will. You don't even have to share the equity with us.
Unless you want to.
Unless I want to, yeah. Okay, so hopefully you guys learned a lot from here. If you had any doubts about buying or selling, you got some of the answers here. But we're always available here. So please let us know if you guys have any questions. Email me. I can get you those charts that Cory has. And any other question that you have for us. And we have other videos. We have the previous one from Cory. If you guys want to see it, it's on my YouTube channel or is in this page at Good Day Chula Vista. If you go back 8 months, scroll down, you'll be able to find it. Or they can go to videos, right, on the page?
Yes.
And then, okay, and that's where you can find it as well. All right, do we have, are there any questions?
Nope, just good comments, great information, and all.
Jenny, thank you. Let's see who joined us, because I always want to say thank you to everybody that's here. Like, there's always a lot of people
Wow,
here.
yeah.
Yeah. Hi, Estella. Thank you for listening. She's up in LA, but I'm pretty sure she's excited to hear all the good news. Jaime, I know you have some units, so you're probably happy that you have all that equity. Leti, Erika, Langford, thank you for joining us. Merav, thank you so much. Diana de la Torre, she's one of our agents.
Yes.
She was excited about you being here today. She's like, oh my God, I definitely want to hear what he has to say. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So let's give a Jamba Juice gift card for 6 Jamba Juices. Let's see.
Who's the lucky winner?
Hopefully it's not Karen. She always. Jenny, yay! Thank you for joining us.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Claudia will put that in the mail for you today. Thank you for joining us. Okay, well, let us know. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week, Wednesday, 4 p.m. Don't forget, we have a date. Thank you, Cory.
Thanks for having me back.
Thank you so much.